Hello, and welcome to today's ClassLink webinar, where we will discuss eliminating barriers to access, single sign-on lessons learned from a small district with a big voice. Presenting today, we have Bob Chappell, VP of Instructional Technology at ClassLink, and Joanne Najarian, Director of Digital Learning at Andover Public Schools. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to review how attendees can ask questions and share thoughts to panelists during the webinar. Your webinar toolbar should have a questions section, as you see here on my screen. Feel free to use it any time during our interactive webinar. I will now turn this session over to Bob and Joanne.
Thank you, everybody, for webbing in today. Just want to acknowledge that it's National Digital Learning Day. So it is nice that this presentation fell on that day today. So Director of Digital Learning, Joanne, and I are going to walk you through single sign-on and analytics and rostering and really providing digital access for students today. I do want to say before we get started and we kind of begin kind of doing a profile of Andover Public Schools in Massachusetts, that if this is your first introduction to ClassLink and you haven't taken a deeper dive, please follow up and do so. This should not be your decision-making moment. This should be a introduction and discussion about what one district learned rolling single sign-on out to their students in their community, teachers. So just to let you know that, again, this is a general introduction. We won't be able to answer every specific question and go into every nook and cranny about what ClassLink can do and how it may be set up in your district. So hopefully you enjoy the general overview today and the engagement in the story that Joanne and their district learned through the process. Joanne, if you could give us kind of a background on your district and generally ClassLink and how long you've been with us, that would be great. Introduce yourself and.
Sure. So I'm Joanne Najarian. I'm the Director of Digital Learning for Andover Public Schools. We're about 20 minutes outside of Boston, probably closer to the border of New Hampshire. We have an enrollment of just a little over 6,000 students in 10 different schools. So in our district, we are a one-to-one K through 12th grade. We have iPads for pre-K through first grade, Chromebooks in our second and fifth grade, which we provide. And then we're a BYOD in our 6th through 12th grade. This year, we have shifted our teachers from the Mac to Windows, which was some of the decision to move towards a single sign-on platform. So that's a little bit about our district. So when we first started to look at ClassLink, we actually began with Clever, and it just really wasn't fitting our needs. It just didn't function as we had hoped it would for us. So we did a lot of research and came across ClassLink and landed on ClassLink for a couple reasons, because of the ability to be able to use IMS Global, the one rostering protocol, and just the ease of being able to hook it up to our systems of records.
Thank you. Also, I know that you actually talked with another district in Massachusetts that had been learning us. So again, I go back to, do your homework, and this is an introduction today, and everybody should take a deeper dive at some point, but it's a nice venue for Joanne and I to share kind of what we have learned through the process and what they're doing in district. So a couple of things as we move through today. Joanne and I kind of did a pre-discussion before our web meeting, and I told her I'm very informal and to jump in. I'm going to kind of drive the overview of the pieces and components of ClassLink and kind of how they all fit together. But Joanne will be telling kind of background and giving color, commentary, and probably the more important components of what you're going to hear today. As we move through this, what I like to say when we look at ClassLink with any district or school, charter school, organization, is there's three legs to the stool of ClassLink. And one is the apps or the single sign-on. So we'll look at, the 6,000 plus potential connectors you can have and how we'll customize your teaching and learning space for your teachers, your admins, your students. We'll look at file access and connecting any of your shared or cloud drives. Again, making it one click to all your single sign-on and files, all your teaching and learning tools. And then we'll discuss the analytics and really taking and managing your digital investment, what you're doing, how you're using those resources and tools. To give some of you on the call that may have looked at us or maybe more technical kind of a background of how we can set this up, we can have multiple login methods. One being QR codes, which are those little badges or QR codes where they can put in any camera-enabled device to log in. Google, Active Directory, facial nodal points. So what you'll see in the context of what we're going to show today is many districts actually using a combination of multiple login methods. And Joanne, the way you log in, if you would like to give us an example of how your students and staff log in, what your methodologies are?
Yeah, so we use both AD and Google credentials. So it makes it easy for students get in off their Google credentials and they hook it up. And then on the backside, we hook it all up through AD.
Awesome. And also, Joanne, you're using password reset with your Active Directory for your teachers.
For teachers only, correct, not for students.
For teachers only, yep. That is included with Active Directory ADFS currently, and we're working on it with Google, but a lot of districts that adds an extra value to that. We have 6,000 single sign-on connectors, and Andover doesn't have 6,000. They have a pretty robust. I was going to say you have a robust list, which is great. I mean, if we take a step back, Joanne, you guys started with us in July, so you have not been with us, even a full cycle of a school year. And the list of resources that will show that you guys are using for single sign-on is really pretty robust. So kudos to you. I will tell those that are on the line is if you search here and something doesn't appear in our single sign-on library, no need to fear, we'll create that. Or to be honest with you, we probably already created that single sign-on connector. It's just we can't even keep pace, adding those in our website. So we're trying to catch up with all the connectors we've created.
Bob, can I just jump in really quick? For those of you that are looking to do this, I have to say the onboarding process that ClassLink has put together is exceptional. It was the easiest onboarding I've ever gone through with any product that I've used. So I just want to put that out there.
That's good to hear. I think one of the things behind that, Joanne, is as we've grown, we've added all sorts of different layers and structures to make it more formulated and more kind of managed. You would be assigned a success manager, just like Joanne, if you decided to work with us, and they will facilitate training, support, your building of your SSOs, and really everything moving forward. Basically, the reason why we have 6,000 single sign-on connectors is because we use all these methods. And as a former colleague of mine said, these are the alphabet soup of connections, the technologies. So there's nobody in the market that has 6,000, and the reason that they don't have 6,000 is because they don't deploy or use all of these methods of authentication or authorization. So I think that really sets us apart. Here's kind of what Andover's using, and it is a snapshot really of like probably last week. This will change, just like any digital footprint, it will change over time. And as new things are added or things that were used to be used are assessed and removed, so will the single sign-on and the access digital framework that we build for a district. But pretty impressive from July. Pretty robust list. Anything in particular you want to point out here that's been used more than other tools? Your primary ones?
Our primary tools, our primary tools typically are G Suites. It's interesting every week to look and see what's popping to the top. But to speak a little bit about why we came to ClassLink, it's because as we moved to the one-to-one, we did a big digital conversion. And the issue that we're having was students were logging into the wrong textbooks and were saying, oh, I can't get to my textbook because they were confused on where they were supposed to go. And what ClassLink has done is it's definitely taken that barrier down, where students log into their dashboards and know exactly which textbooks is which, and what resources are available to them within the district. So, I mean, I can't speak to one application. It's just really transformed teaching for all levels for our kids and our teachers.
Joanne, we wanted to do a little brain teaser with everybody and ask them a question about the digital resources that they're using. So we have a poll that we're going to pop up for those that are on the call, just to get some feedback. Marla, good with the poll?
And the poll is on the screen right now and says, how many digital resources are you using in your district? So we're just going to take a few seconds here to gather some responses. And it does look like predominantly 21 plus, at over 60%, 21 plus.
Thank you. It's not uncommon, and really it's changing in some districts that looked at us and weren't really making that digital conversion a year and a half ago are now coming back saying it's gotten to the threshold where we need to have something to help us manage this. So this is a challenge for most districts, and you can see Andover has lots of resources, and they were at a point where single sign-on really is a requirement to access all the tools and teaching resources. Thank you. Appreciate that poll. This is one of the screens from Andover Public Schools. What we're going to do as we move through this, I think probably what would be best, Joanne, is let's kind of dive in and look at ClassLink and the pieces and components, and you can kind of help me frame it and discuss how you guys are using it within your district. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. So this is a login page, and if I was to go to Andover, you're going to see that they have a different login page. They're going to have their branding, their logo. Just like all of these districts here, one of the things that you'll see is that everybody's branded, created a different login structure or process. So in this district, they can do quick cards, facial nodal points, Google, network logins. One of the things that I think is important is, try to name it something besides ClassLink. It is not about us. It's about you and your families and your teaching and learning community. I know that we will create an app for you so that you can look at the analytics and single sign-on and files from any mobile device. And Joanne, you alluded to before when we were talking about your resources, you alluded to it's interesting to see kind of which ones are being used most often and being accessed.
Yeah.
And what you were alluding to was the analytics piece, which we're going to look at. But I wanted to go back and reference that again, is that you are using the analytics to kind of see who's using what, how often, what are your most used apps, those related things. Do you use the mobile analytics component that we designed?
Yeah, I actually just started using it. That's the one thing I like about this platform is you can access your dashboard from any device, as well as getting the analytics. So, there are times I don't know who's on the call, but for myself, I've got to look at things really quickly. So I'm able to just open up my phone and get to it and not have to remember, oh my gosh, what is that password? What is that URL? I get straight to my dashboard. And I have to say, the first thing I do in the morning is bring up my dashboard, and I never leave that dashboard. And since I've introduced it to all admin in district, it's the one thing that they're always telling me, it's the best thing we've purchased. It's the one thing they love, because they don't have to think about all the different places that we have to go to.
Yeah, I know for myself, as I age, I get a little bit more like, just put it all in front of me and let me get access to it. And I don't want to have to remember where I have to go and the logins and those related things. The analytics on the mobile device is great too, because if you're stopped by a board member or somebody who, or curriculum director, assistant superintendent who wants to know how that envisions math digital component is working, you can easily look at the logins as well. And Joanne, you said another thing. You're kind of rolling these things out, but this is the dashboard you go to every day. You said this is the place where you go to get access to all your teaching and learning and productivity tools, which I think is really the dynamics of what a district should be looking to do, right?
Absolutely.
It should be the portal. Yeah. So we're going to actually log in and look at a single sign-on solution. I'm going to log in using Google, and when I log in here, again, there was different methods that I could use logging in. I'm going to log in to the teacher side. So what it would look like for a teacher or potentially maybe a student. Lots of options for logging in. Again, the QR codes, which I could have flashed in front of the camera on a Chromebook or other mobile device or a device with a camera. I logged in using those Google credentials, Active Directory, all sorts of things. Now, you saw the list of resources that they were using at Andover, and depending on who you logged in as, you would see those resources here within your dashboard. And some of those were, SIS, other productivity tools. Many were curricular resources, Google Apps, and those related things. So when you log in at Andover, depending on your role and what you do and whether you're a third grader or a high schooler, you're going to see different icons here with access to your teaching and learning tools. For a lot of people, when we show the single sign-on component, it is really logging in and clicking those resources and it logging you directly into the resources that you're looking to use. It is that simple to get into and or teach across two curricular digital tools environments within a class or a block. So the magic is really what we design and how we create those connections in the background. I know BrainPop is big within your district, so again, you want to log into a resource within Andover. They're going to appear here. Google Apps is pretty big too, right?
It's huge. Yeah, I think our biggest one right now is Follett. It's getting into our SIS system.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, this is going to look different within whatever different environment. It is not uncommon for the district to push down folders, and in that folder they can put other library media resources. So not only can you in the management console push down to your users the curricular digital materials, web links, a link to their ASOP time off request or the SIS like you guys, Aspen. There's the ability to push down folders, which is very common, and the library media specialists really like, again, that their purchased resources are front and center, right? Kids are actually using valid places to get information.
And I have to say, our media specialists love it, and they actually have made a connection off their websites that go directly to ClassLink. Before, they used to use a website to put all the resources on it, and now it says to access all resources, please log into your ClassLink. They just brought it down to one level.
Well, and if you know, probably like I do, when you talk to them, they're just so happy that they're not having to, I hate to use a better word, but push all the valid resources. Google is not your place to go for all your research and
Absolutely.
other things. Library media specialists get so frustrated, like, hello, information, it's got to be valid, and it's got to just not be on the web somewhere. So that's great. You will see when I put this in edit mode that whatever environment, there's certain locks on these. And what these mean is that if this was the dashboard for Andover, anything that was pushed down through the management console to your group's users, grades, would be locked. Key to that is everybody knows what's available. You can do a training on BrainPop and then something flashy comes along 3 months later and everybody forgets that BrainPop was so great and now they're using Storyboard that or something else. So I think having it front and center reminds them all the great tools and resources you've made available to them.
And so we're
Couple of things.
actually in district, we're managing how things are pushed out to it. I know within ClassLink, you have the ability that people can go in and put their own resources. Since we've introduced it, what we've done is we've eliminated the ability for them to push their own resources to it because we want them to get comfortable with it. And then we're going to open up the next level. So we are making sure that all the resources that we fund are front and center. And if there's something that a teacher does want on it, we push out for them. That's one
Yeah,
way
and
of managing it.
I think it's a good practice, and I think somewhat of a trend. So kind of what Joanne was speaking about is that we have 5,000 single sign-on connectors. So districts really have kind of two methodologies that they use, or really three. Is we push down the resources, they're locked, they're available to them. The second is let's leave everything open and they can search across this environment, and if they want to have whatever they want that's a single sign-on connector added to their environment, they can add that to their teaching and learning environment, and that resource will appear there. The third, which is also very common, is for a district to have kind of an approved library where it will say Andover approved additional resources or whatever you may call it. And in here, it might be 20, 30, 40 resources. It's a great place if you have an AP textbook you don't want to push down. You can push it to this approved library, and then the first day the teachers and students can add it to their class. So,
We make that
again,
available.
Joanne,
We
you what?
we have that piece available. So we don't have the featured or the one click single sign on that people can add, but we actually have a library. So we have things that we push to their dashboards, and then we have a library that we create for them as well.
Great. And that's more of a trend, to be honest with you, Joanne, is a lot of districts were having kind of this free-for-all, I like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the state you're in, there's less privacy and security pushes.
Exactly.
But in Massachusetts and Connecticut and New York and certain states, definitely districts want to have more control over what digital resources are being used and accessed. So it's really a trend. I do want to point out that if you want an app to be created, it's very easy to request that, the URL, or request a single sign-on. And again, in most districts that, in Massachusetts and others, this request will go to the curriculum technology people who will say, yes, we would like that created, or no, we don't want that created. It doesn't meet the standards. So I think the point is that you can have as much control of this or have it as open as you'd like. It doesn't mean they can't move this around and reshuffle things and create folders and, still make it their personal space. But in your case, Joanne, you want control of what resources are being accessed and how, right?
Absolutely. I don't care if they change the backgrounds, just the resources. And it has a lot to do with privacy.
Absolutely. And very much a trend. So I thought we had a question here. Great. Marla, did we have a question that you want to ask?
We sure do. One of our audience members is asking, how do you restrict the free-for-all access?
It was easy. I just actually told my rep, and they took that panel off for teachers. So it's just not available. So when they open up that screen that Bob has up right now, they're not going to see all those. As an administrator, I do still have the ability to see all and add. What they do is they take it off of their panel.
So again, it goes back to great response, but it goes back to working with that success manager that works with you that will do it for you, right? This is either show you how to do it or something they can actually set within your environment for you. This is not a, hey, here it is, here's your shell, go to town. You actually have a step-by-step process and person that works alongside of you from our team. Good response. Good question. Did I miss anything within the context of single sign-on that you want to talk about in particular?
No. I mean, you're moving on to my files, right? That's the only other thing that I think.
My files. Yeah.
I love it.
Yes. All right. So we're going to click to my files, but again, I'm not logging in. I'm already logged in. So in general, as part of teaching and learning, files, mapping guides, curricular tools, quizzes, tests, documents, PowerPoints, whatever it may be, are part of teaching and learning, not just the single sign-on curricular tools. So why don't you give us why you like this and what this has, kind of how your structure is set up, and then I'll kind of do a walkthrough on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what it allows us to do is create those school network folders and give teachers access to it outside of school. So our issue was that teachers were, making copies of files and putting it on their hard drives or putting it on their desktop, and I should say putting it on their desktop. And then what would happen is their computers would crash and they would lose everything. So we have what we call our home drive.
That's never happened to me in my 50 plus years.
Yeah. So
it's like the end of days when that happens, right? You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing we can do about it. So, we want to make sure that it's sitting on a server. So we have within ClassLink, we have our home drive, which is actually our Z drive when you're in district, that all teachers have access to it, which they like. This was the biggest selling point. I mean, if the single sign-on wasn't what was going to sell it, this is what sold it, is the fact that teachers can go in and grab their shared files. So we have shared files between departments. We have shared files between buildings. Teachers have what they call a home drive. So everything's accessible there. But then we also have the ability to get to our Google Drive. And we are not only a G Suite district, but we're an Office 365 district, which can be confusing for teachers. But this My File allows teachers to have access to it, and also gives them the ability to switch things seamlessly from one drive to the other drive. So I can't even talk enough about My Files. It's, I think it was hard for me when I got to this district. I've been here going on 7 years, where I couldn't access my drives because we didn't have virtual drives or in the cloud. So this has eliminated my having to put it on a thumb drive, drop it to my desktop. I have access to my drives always.
So that basically tells the whole story between this. So on the left here, what your district looks like is you're going to have your network drives, your Dray drive, you called it. Your Google Drive is connected.
Yeah.
And then also Office 365.
And we also have the we have the OneDrive as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Yep.
We just added it. That's why.
So OneDrive.
Yep. We just added it.
So we will set this up to mirror what your district has or uses. And if you're completely Google, that's fine. In the single sign-on, we can have a link to the Google Drive. A lot of districts are still shared drives for special ed and admin files. So you would not have all these listed in your particular district. It would be set up again to reflect that. I will tell you that we use this at work. I use it all the time. I have Dropbox, Google, and we have network drives within our environment. And the thing that really, what you talked about is you can share between drives. So if I want to copy over something from my shared drive, I want to open something that's on the home drive and I want to open it up in Microsoft Online, that is included within your license. We have a partnership with Microsoft. If I want to download it, if I want to delete this, copy and paste. Couple things for you to think about because there's lots of different districts. One is if you're moving between environments and you're moving teachers off network, but keeping admins, this is a great way to say, hey, we're going to connect these for the next 9 months. Start moving your documents from your shared drive to your Google Drive, and then we're shutting off the share for staff. I will tell you, most important to me is the ability to search across all the environments, whether they're cloud or network drive.
Absolutely.
I can never remember where our marketing, not to pick on Marla and anybody from marketing on the call if they're from our team, but marketing has a way to name things differently that I probably wouldn't name. Theirs is probably better convention, but I can search by that keyword across all those environments and find what I'm looking for. So that's what I use most often.
I would say that's what I use too.
Yeah. I can never remember where the file is, but if I know the root
Where
word
did it
like
go?
RTM or event, it's good. Anything we missed within the context of this? Oh, RDP, you can RDP into resources as well, remote desktop in, so we can set
Absolutely.
that up. There are a few exceptions where you can't, but generally some districts are still remote desktopping into certain programs. Did I forget anything, Joanne?
No, I think you covered everything we're using.
This was the aha for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was the aha for administrators.
Yeah.
Just sold it.
Yeah. And again, every district comes from a different perspective. For some, this isn't a challenge. The single sign-on is the aha. If you're talking to a district where they're trying to manage their resource allocation and investments, the analytics for a superintendent or others might be the aha. So everybody's aha is a little different. But yeah, and again, you're logged in. They're both here. You're connected. No more logging in. I think we're good. Any burning questions, Marla? We'll make a shift
No,
here.
we can proceed. We can proceed.
Okay, and again, you're accessing this on any device, anywhere, anytime. Again, access and equity for students and staff. One of the things I do want to point out is do not lose sight of the fact that you can put in a ticket support request, ASOP teacher time off sub requests, your HR system. So this is not, and Joanne, you say this is your place to go every day, which
Yes.
reflects that this is your productivity for teaching and learning for teachers and students. But if you're an admin, you're a tech person, you're a paraprofessional, it is really where you go, not just for digital curricular items, but for all things that might be related to you functioning within your role or your job with your students and or colleagues,
Yeah,
which is a good point.
absolutely. And the dashboard is you can customize it. So, for me, since I get into probably 30 something different systems, it's broken down. I have folders broken down by, digital learning, admin, textbook admin. So it's broken down by folders, and it just, like I said, I'm
Works
not
for you.
I'm not
Yep.
saying it because we're doing a webinar on it. I don't go anywhere else. Explicitly, I turn on my computer, I open up my ClassLink, and I sit in ClassLink.
Yep. So do I. This is where, all of our, if a new client is onboarded, this is where we have our data systems, our drives. One of the things that I think is interesting, we added this search about a year ago. And the reason is because as the digital conversion happens, the dashboards are getting kind of longer because the investment and the resources are getting longer. So the folder creation, what you said, helps, but also being able to search if you want to search by that keyword or root, right? So always making kind of additional improvements. We're going to go to the admin side. Are you good with shifting over to the analytics piece?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's switch to the admin piece. Now, again, this is not what the teacher is going to see. By permission and role, you have access to certain things within the admin component of ClassLink. One of those is the Management Council, which we don't really go into when we just, doing some general introductions. One of the things that I think is important to note that did not pop up that I will turn on is you can push notifications. So if you want to push down grades are due, or a welcome back email or a welcome back video for the first day or week of school to all the staff and students through the parent component, you can push down a video, a link, information about training opportunities. I'm a huge fan of that. Do you use that now?
Yes, we do. I totally forgot about that.
Okay.
We use it quite a bit.
Yeah, and a lot of districts don't. And when I meet with districts, I'm like, you got to use this because if you want to push something down, like, hey, a simple notice that grades are due, right? Or sometimes we do training video vignettes for districts. And when a teacher logs in, they'll be able to click a video that shows them how to personalize their learning space and how to move it around or change colors or just create folders. Lots of good stuff. I'm a fan of that. One of the things we'll want to do, kind of the third leg of this stool, is the analytics. So again, you started in July, you rolled that out in September. How are you using the analytics currently?
So actually, it was a big help for budgeting, to really see what teachers were using, and then we could dive deeper to see why they weren't, how they were being used and weren't being used. The interesting part that we came across in our analytics was, about 6 weeks ago, we looked at it, and ClassLink was sitting about 27. So, not everybody was using it. But then, we checked just like 2 weeks ago, and it was all the way up to 4. Because I think we're being really explicit with teachers, this is the place to go. Um, and you and I have had the conversation about the fact that if teachers aren't all using the correct browser, you're not getting your total analytics. But we get a pretty good percentage of teachers that are actually using it. Have about 750 teachers in district, um, and we have probably like 600 that are always going to ClassLink. So our numbers are pretty good, and it definitely helped us to look and say, well, what are we working using? It also helped us to look at what wasn't being used, what resource wasn't being used, and is that a PD issue? Did we have to go back out and look to present PD, or is it something that we just kind of have to say, you know what, we're ready to give up on that resource?
Yeah, and actually, the longer you use ClassLink, the better the analytics become, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
started in July. I think one of the things that I was encouraged when we spoke was um, you rolled this out and you engaged the building level support and you did a lot of training. And I think that if a district says, we're coming on board, we get it, we know we need single sign on and file access and all of those things, and what would be hey, what do we need to know if we're moving forward? And it really is the communication, pre-messaging to your learning community that this is going to help. This is where you go to access your resources and modeling that behavior, what you're doing, right? You use it, you're
Absolutely.
modeling it.
Yeah.
But I loved that you engaged a lot of the building support teams and school level to make sure that everybody understood what was coming and why it was there. I think if you build it, they'll come, but they need to know what it is and that it's coming, and how they can get access to it. Basically, is
Yeah.
probably the most important thing to take away.
And I think we've talked about the fact that, a lot of teachers say, I'm an adult, I know how to bookmark. Why would I want to use this? And it's like I said before, I am very good with remembering my passwords, and I am very good at remembering where my resources are. But it just is a one-stop, very quick, efficient way of getting to things, not having to think about what that login is. And then the other thing is, I don't, if you bookmark and IT needs to come along and clean your cache for some reason, you've now lost all your logins, and now you have to go back and figure them all out. That doesn't happen with ClassLink. It's all there. It's all stored. You're not going to
Yep.
lose that information.
Yeah, on any device, anywhere, right? So,
Correct.
um, yeah, and I know just in our demo site, you see all the bookmarks on the top. Sometimes this takes a little bit to load. I mean, this is we have these basically just to show certain websites and resources in our website and stuff. One of the things I am not good at is remembering where to go and passwords. I'm terrible at it. Um, every user and every person in your community has a different skill set. I will tell you, the Learning Council says that we lose about 40 hours or a week of instruction logging in a year,
Oh
and
yeah.
that on average, students and staff between professional, personal kind of life have 50 plus different accounts and passwords that they're using.
Absolutely.
So, and one of the things, one of my colleagues I was with used the Hawaiian incident to kind of point out the password related issues, and she showed not to scare anybody, but the governor didn't tweet out that it was a fake warning for almost 30 minutes because he didn't know his Twitter password. And if you Google online the emergency service in Hawaii, if you Google online, there's a picture of the computer and a post-it note with the password to the emergency system. And if you Google it, later today, you will see that in that room, the password was on a Post-it note on a computer monitor. So anybody that had that could have posted any message at any point in time. You know, so it's an issue everywhere, right? Not just in schools.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the analytics in general. So again, this is a district that has lots of, and you really talked about all the touch points of why it's important, PD and training and investment and those sort of things. Most districts don't have a handle on their digital investment and what they're doing for any web-based resources and tools and whether they're free. The dashboard and the analytics show you kind of who's logged in, what are your top application use. So it gives you kind of a high level picture. You can create custom reports and you can actually have reports emailed to certain individuals. So if you have a assistant superintendent curriculum that's not so technical but loves to see the data about usage of things, especially if you invest in a new math program like Envisions or something, you got a new initiative, that's great to do that. I would say that looking at the apps probably was the second most important thing, is basically just understanding and looking at the launches, but also the apps that are being used, pulling reports for year-end reviews. I will tell you, having been on both sides, working, you know, as an administrator, working as a vendor, a lot of these vendors either will provide this information to you or create some kind of reporting tools. They don't often make it easy because they don't really want you to know how much you're using or not using. In this case, probably what's more effective is to look at the ones that you are using the least, not these ones, right? It's the ones you're using the least. Like, you know, maybe you loved My Red School Bus 7 years ago, but it's not really fitting the need. But you're just used to investing in it, right? And it's been here forever, but nobody's really using it anymore. So those are the things that are good. You can look at your schools. So again, if you're noticing that, you know, a school is not using a resource or not logging in, I think the schools allow you to see basically, you know, if the usage is there. With the apps, you can drill down to the school. So if you want to look across your 3 elementary or 10 elementary schools to see who's using that new math program, digital curricular material. I want to point out that you can go down to the user level in your groups, so you can look at users and groups. So if I want to look at a user, now if you're a tech director on this phone call today, your teachers will come back from some event or conference and go, oh, this is great. You know, Math is great. It's a new online program and they have a free version. We've been trying it. Let's use it. And they're going to bug you to invest in this, and your money has to go to different places. So what you could do is you could push it down, and then 6 months, 3 months, 2 months later, you can see if those teachers are still using it when they come back. And if they've only used it twice in 3 months, you can make a case that, hey, we can't pay for the premium version for that. So lots of good things. Even looking down to the user level to see who you want to help you sell or promote or train on a new program. Who are the power users? Even looking to an individual student and their tools that they're using if you're doing an IEP review with other teachers and those that work with that student and families. So lots of good stuff here. And we're always adding new components to this piece. Do you have another question from the group, Marla? Any burning questions?
A question did come back, not regarding analytics though. It's jumping back to the single sign-on dashboard. The question is in regards to Twitter. Can users add their own credentials for one-off applications like social media that's not mass created or used district-wide?
Yes.
They can if the district allows them to do that. Yeah, it's your choice whether you want them to do that. You could put that in the library, and if they wanted to add their Twitter account or their an external Gmail account or whatever it may be, that would be the district's decision. But yes. Joanne, any modification to that?
No, absolutely. Because the way the dashboard is set up is if you push it out, the teachers can go up to their profiles and then lock in those one-off apps with their credentials.
Yep. I think the point is, depending on where you are, is that you have as much control whether you want to have that in the approved library or not. And really, in a lot of states, privacy and security controls are getting stricter, and districts are beginning to see the shift of, hey, ClassLink is a way for us to manage access and what they're doing and have a controlled environment. But you can have it as open as you want. Yeah, for sure.
But you can also, I mean, I know for us, what we do is like for Twitter, we have the app pushed only out to teachers. So if a teacher wants it, they request it. So we have a process that we've put forth. If a teacher wants to request a particular app pushed to their dashboard, they go through the process and we can push it out to a single teacher's dashboard, or we can push it out to
Or all
multiple
third
teachers.
graders or all
Yeah,
teachers. Yep.
absolutely. So that's
Yep.
the process we put in place because of privacy. You know, we are very strict when it
Cognizant of
comes
it.
to,
Yeah.
to privacy and making sure that we're protecting not only the privacy of our students, but the privacy of our parents, of our teachers. So we do have that flexibility that, and I actually today had 2 teachers email me for a particular app that they wanted pushed to their dashboards, and I just pushed it directly to their dashboards. So that's the great thing about the management console, is you can get very granular and send it to a single person, or you can do it within a group, or you can do it to a school or the entire district.
And you did it probably within seconds or minutes, depending on what the request
Oh,
was,
it took
right?
2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very easy. Yep. We won lots of awards on the management council because of the ease of kind of managing and pushing those resources down and making them available. Very quick story that I was working with a district, and I heard this story about the students having to log in to a website, and one of the high schoolers was like, why are we doing this? Why isn't it in One Click or One Connect or whatever they were calling their ClassLink? The teacher got on the phone, called the tech department within minutes. It was pushed down to those high school students so that they could have access to that. But it was the students pointing out to the teacher, like, why isn't this in our, our one-click
Yeah.
environment or whatever they were calling it? But it was that easy to make it available. We're going to shift because we've got about 10 minutes or so, and we want to make sure we cover the discussion around IMS Global and One Roster. So, Joanne, you good?
I'm good.
Awesome. Okay. So this is a discussion around rostering. So many of the tools that are in your single sign-on environment need course and class rostering. Since we don't know everybody on the call and where they're coming from, I'm kind of going from a baseline discussion here about IMS Global. So IMS Global is an interoperability organization, works in K-12, and they are managing or leading the effort for One Roster. So what happened in 2015 was large districts around the country, those that are larger than where I live in upstate New York, where the average size is 1,000 to probably 4,000 students, like you in Maryland, smaller districts. But the large districts went to IMS Global and said, hey, we can't roster our students because, or we need a better way to roster our students because HMH wants this file set structure, and Pearson wants this, and Renaissance Learning wants this structure. And then students and teachers get students rostered in the first day of school with this tool. They all have to go in and get themselves registered in a class, and I have to send an SFTP that's nightly to this tool, and then they want a data dump every few weeks. It's a mess. And I think probably everybody on the phone would agree, you're managing and doing it in multiple different ways. So what happened was these large districts basically through the organization went to the large vendors, and the large vendors go, we get it. We hear you. We're going to design a set of common files, data sets that will be able to allow us to roster all of your kids. And it will be the same file set for Pearson and BrainPop and HMH and whoever it may be. The good thing about this, if you know SIF, is we had lots of kind of interest in SIF, and it never really worked out to be to the level that we wanted. This is catching fire. I'll say it's on fire. So the vendors that are being one roster compatible or compliant has grown dramatically. And really in the last 6 to 9 months has caught on, in part because districts are now saying to their vendors, whether it's a mom and pop or a regional player or a new app that's catching fire again but isn't a huge company, they're saying you have to be one roster compliant. So what I like to say is that ClassLink does not own the standard, although we helped write the specs. Our people sit on the development board, steering committee. What we did was provide a one roster server and a dashboard. So we provided the tool to manage the files, common set of files from the SIS and how you will push those to your applications. Joanne, did I do okay? Any color or flavor you want to add?
No, I mean, I've been looking at one roster IMS Global for a while now. So that was the big selling point, is that ClassLink utilizes it, and that it just, I mean, I'm a small district. I mean, 6,000 students, I don't think is a lot of students, but we were continuously rostering. I mean, it got to a point where people were like, don't even go near Joanne at a certain time of the year because she is rostering. And it's definitely what you said. The protocols are not the same. And massaging the data to go in, and the one rostering makes it very easy to do it across platforms. And we use Follett, and Follett actually has adopted it. So it's going to, in September, it's going to make it easier for us that when we roster a kid into our SIS system, it'll automatically know what to give that kid based on what school they're in, what grade they're in, and then they'll just be rostered across. And then their dashboards will set up accordingly.
Reflect that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go through and show you how this works again, because I'm a very visual learner. So, and I'm not going to show you every nook and cranny in this, but basically what happens is your SIS provides, and we set up a job, SFTP or whatever, for this data to be pulled into our one roster server. We can host this for you, or you can host it as a VM, lots of options. We have a validation tool that also validates this, which is nice, like a sanity check, like, hey, something's wrong with the data, the structure's off, garbage in, garbage out, let's not let it happen, so let's look at that. So basically, the data will flow from your SIS, we'll set it up as a job to come into the roster, and it will be checked for validation to make sure the data's in the right format, sequence, etc. Then, within the context of the dashboard, again, this is a management tool, is you'll go and you'll say, okay, Brain Pop. That's one of the tools. I don't need to roster anything. I don't want to. I'm going to give them the basic information, or I'm going to give them full. Traditionally, the basic information is what is shared. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pick my organization. So I want it to go to all. I want it to go to certain schools, organizations, and I want it to go to these courses. So basically, you're deciding where this data set, one set of files that's common for all the vendors that are one roster compatible. And then what you're going to do within the context of this is you're going to go and you're going to say, great, BrainPop, they're really cool. They accept the API key, so I'm going to give them this, the secret code. So what's happening is the data is flowing from your SIS being updated. It's flowing out to BrainPop through this API structure, and it's keeping your rosters up to date. Now, if it's a smaller vendor or they're not capable of accepting the API, you'll just set up the SFTP, and you'll set up the address, you'll test it, and when you're ready, you'll turn it on and set when it's going to go to that vendor. So what's happening again visually is data's flowing in, it's validated, and then you're setting up how it goes out, what data from the common set. Now the common set are these file CSV structure formats that the industry has settled on. Good?
Good for me.
Okay. Again, Easy. You add an app, you want to add CareDoc to this, they're one roster compliant, you add it to your workspace, and what you can do in the context of this is you can then provision out the basic information again. CareDoc will be there. So once you set this up and spend some time doing this, it's very easy to add, remove, update, change the structure. Let's say you bought BrainPop for the high school, but now you want to use it for the rest of the district. I can go in and change how I'm going to roster. Very simple to do. In the context of this, just to let you know, everything is included. So typically what happens with our pricing structure, because everybody's probably asking that or wanting to know that, is it's users. So students and FTE teachers, admins, paraprofessional, everybody's included, but students and FTE teachers, and there is a one-time setup fee. It's very minimal for us to build, design, host, train. Typically what happens, kickoff call, we do an inventory, we do the activation of your server, and then training and follow-up. Check-in calls, because your digital landscape will change, new things will be rolled out. So everything is inclusive within ClassLink. These are some next steps just to let you know, because I go back to what I said originally, and Joanne, you did a great job really talking and positioning what you learned. I know that one roster is kind of your next step.
Yes.
So this is a path. This is not, it's a journey. So as we add new things, you'll roll out new things. But here's next steps for anybody that was on the call today. Schedule, review price, technical calls. This should not be your decision making, although you did a great job, Joanne. I would hope that anybody today would do a deeper dive and schedule a one-on-one somehow with one of our team members. Joanne was nice enough to, again, share all of her information. Follow her on Twitter and email either one of us. Joanne, if you have some questions and want to talk to one of your peers that's kind of been through maybe where you're going to go, and you can email me and I will connect you with the right person from our team if you want to take a deeper dive. Joanne, you did a great job. First time doing something together. I thought you did a super job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Marla, do you want to do any closing at all, or?
I sure do. On behalf of ClassLink, I would like to thank all of today's attendees for joining. We look forward to many more interactive webinars together. And if you'd like any more information about ClassLink, you can visit us on the web at classlink.com. And again, you have the contact information here for our panelists. And I just want to thank everyone for their participation. Have a wonderful digital learning day.